Hi, everyone. Welcome to What Works. This is a show for advisors that taps into over 1,000 years of experience shared by our consortium advisors. I'm your host, Don Patrick, and I'm here to guide the conversation with guest advisors and lift the hood on what works for them in business and life. It's all about learning and growing, so let's go. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the IFG podcast, What Works? And our guests today, Kim DeProspero and Hank Cleare, partners at Financial Strategies Group in Sunrise, Florida. Welcome, Kim and Hank.
Thanks, Don. We made it
Thank you.
finally.
Yeah, I know. This has been, we're all busy.
We're all
And-
busy. I think we've been trying
Yeah.
for what, over a year?
Just about. We've
Just
rescheduled
about.
a few times, but we're here.
How long ago did you start this, Don, the podcast?
Maybe a year and a half ago, I think.
Okay.
And
Not
it was
too far behind.
my first one was, I was afraid of it. And even though I used to do radio back in the day, but I put it off for half a year. And it was Matt Carpinelli was the first one. It was so much fun, and he's so funny. And these are a blast. And Karen Lee, she says, well, Don, you know everything about me. You're not going to learn anything new. Well, I did. I learned something new all the time. And there's so much great wisdom out there, even with the younger folks. It's amazing. So, Kim, I'm going to start off with you, and just tell us about your growing up, family, and we'll get into the business part a little bit later. Just
Okay.
tell us a little bit about you.
Well, I grew up in New England, outside of Worcester, Mass.
What's right? What's that?
Worcester. And 3 brothers. I'm the only girl. Dad was in the insurance business for years, which we'll talk a little bit about that. So I had a little knowledge of the business, but not a whole lot. But grew up in New England, moved down to South Florida my last 2 years of high school, which is how I ended up in the southeastern part of the country long term. Went to school at Auburn, War Eagle, and had a really, really good upbringing. Interestingly, being that my father was in the business, never talked about the business, I kind of went away to college and thought I'd figure out what I want to do along the way. Thought I wanted to go on and get my master's and PhD and be a psychologist. But in the meantime, I got a job with Rockwell International in Atlanta, recruiting engineers.
So I didn't know that.
You didn't? Yes, that
No.
was my first job up in Duluth, Georgia.
Oh my gosh.
And worked at Hooters. I'm sorry. I worked at Houston's.
Don't edit that out. Don't edit that out.
That's pretty funny.
Funny. Don, I didn't know that either.
Houston's at Perimeter Mall.
Yeah.
Waited tables at night and then worked at Rockwell International recruiting engineers during the day. And that's where I got my first start in the business world, I guess.
Amazing. And I know you have 2 boys.
2 sons, Nicholas and Christopher.
And
And do you want me to go on about my family?
yeah, tell us about family, Nick and Chris. I mean, they've already heard Nick and Chris, but they haven't heard from their mother.
Yeah, well, I was married fairly young, had kids fairly young in my 20s, was in the business, started. In fact, today's my anniversary, by the way, 40 years.
Oh my gosh. April Fools.
April Fools. April 1st.
You're not pulling my leg, are you?
1986. I am not. 40 years today.
Oh my gosh.
That I came into business.
Congratulations.
Yeah. But yeah, I grew up with 3 brothers. I have 2 sons. I have, I think, 7 nephews. I have 1 niece. And the offsprings are all starting to have children. My son had a daughter. My nephew had a daughter. My other nephew is supposed to be having a daughter. So I think we're finally swaying toward more women in our family, which is awesome. We'll talk more about it, but both Nick and Chris are in the business. Both are married. One has a child. I have my first grandchild who's 10 months old, which is
Fantastic.
amazing.
Now, how many houses do you guys own?
How many houses currently?
Yes.
3 1/3.
Where at?
Well, our main home is here in Fort Lauderdale, and we have our house in the Keys, which, of course, we spend most of our time in Isla Mirada. And my brother and my niece, my only niece, and our Hank and I bought the house across the street because we have such a huge family that every time people come to the Keys, we've got 4 air mattresses and we're borrowing the friend's house down the street and they're sleeping out on the dock. And this has been going on for years. So right after COVID, has it been 5 years, Hank? A neighbor of ours
2001.
owned the house across the street, and we had told him, if you ever sell this house, please let us know. So we got lucky, good timing in the market, bought the house across the street, and it's been the best investment we've ever made because it's always got family, friends all year long, that we can all be literally right across the street from each other, which is really a blessing. And then 5 years ago, or is it 4 years ago, we decided to work remotely for a couple of months just because we could. And it was right after COVID. And we were sitting during COVID saying, well, if we're all working at home, why can't we do this in Italy? And Hank and I have a tie to Italy, which we can get into if you'd like. But we
Yeah,
found a place online, literally looking for a decent little village in Tuscany, good internet so that we would have access to the office and communication. And we found this little village in Tuscany and ended up buying a place there. So we spend time there also.
that's amazing. And you guys are constantly hosting and entertaining, aren't you?
We love it. Yeah,
I
we
Yeah,
know.
love
we
it.
we enjoy doing it, and I think we've gotten pretty good at it. So
A little bit
it's
of
funny
practice.
because it doesn't seem like a lot of work anymore, and we both enjoy doing it. So
That's
it works out
fantastic.
really well.
Well, Hank, tell us a little bit about your growing up and all that kind of good
Well, I was
stuff.
born in 1967. Did you ask Kim when she was born? Anyways,
I'm
um,
I'm
Well, it's
smarter than
pretty
that,
easy to
Hank.
figure out. If I started at age 22 and I've been in the business 40 years today, how old am I?
I was I didn't know we were
so
gonna have a math quiz.
yeah, right. So we're only 10 years apart.
Uh-huh.
Um, born in Florida. My father, grandfather, great grandfather, all from the island of Key West, and my mom was
Wow.
from Orlando. So literally, my childhood was between those two locations. And after high school, went to University of Florida in Gainesville. Also a legacy from my dad, my uncle, my grandfather. Um, and it was my junior year of college that I had a family friend in Atlanta that convinced me to explore Atlanta potentially as a location for starting my career. And I arranged a bunch of interviews there, one of them being with the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta. And so, in the midst of really, I guess, the first Gulf War, 2001, um, I got the internship, did that for a summer, really enjoyed it. Really first knowledge and just experience with just how the Federal Reserve and the bank works in general. And they offered me a full-time position when I graduated. So graduated in November, moved 2001 to Atlanta and started my career there, which was a great learning process. I mean, when you think about how much our finance business is involved, financial planning, interest rates, the economy, all those kind of things. So it was a great learning process for me. While I was there, one of the areas I was on the bank regulatory side, bank examiner. Um, I'd always walk into the banks and say, I'm from the government and I'm here to help you, just to
Right.
break the ice. But one of the areas I specialized in was bank owned securities operations. So this was really at the infancy of banks getting into owning broker dealers and doing initially municipal, then corporate, and skirting the line through nuance of the Glass-Steagall Act. And that's obviously what separated banking and commerce and investment banking. And it was after that I've evolved into, like I said, a consulting business, helping banks set up their operations. And at the conclusion of that, really didn't know what I wanted to do. So I actually took some time off and did some soul searching. And one of my buddies came into town, came into Atlanta. We drove for a football game. So we had about a 5-hour drive in the car. And he happened to work at Costco at the time. And a lot of our conversations were talking about Costco, talking about their company benefits. And he had this enormous amount of questions. And I seemed to have a lot of the answers and understood what he was talking about to the point of being able to explain it. And honestly, that was the trip that I said, why don't I go into financial planning? I've always kind of done that as a hobby. I remember reading a book, Charles Given's Wealth Without Risk, years ago.
Oh, I remember that.
Mm-hmm.
And it talked to you about, interest rates on credit cards and, all these kind of nuanced things that I think are really part of planning. Wasn't necessarily 100% on investing, but obviously the techniques of doing things. So I came back from that trip and I said, I want to do financial planning. And I started interviewing companies in Atlanta. And one of the companies was our old legacy company that we started out, DeProspero and Associates. And that's where I met you, Don, for the first time. And after talking with a bunch of different companies, thought that was probably the best fit for me. Also, that's where I also met Al Searcy and Connie Weemscott. And what started working closely with Al evolved into a partnership. And that's kind of how I wound up in Atlanta and how I got started in my career.
Amazing. Kim, so all right, so we know you got started. You were 22 in the business, right?
So when
Selling
I first
insurance.
started in the business, I was with Rockwell International. I'd been with them 9
Okay.
months in Atlanta. And I called my father up one day, who was in the insurance business with State Mutual. And I just said, I don't think I'm cut out for this corporate world. And he asked me why. And I said, I kind of walk the hallways, go to the bathroom, get water, get my work done. I'm looking for more work. There's no more work to do, but I got to pretend like I'm working. And I vividly remember him saying, "You're a hall walker." I said, "I'm a hall walker." He goes, "Yeah, you're a hall walker," which is when corporate America, when you have to act like you're busy and you've got stuff going on and you've finished all your work that you're supposed to be doing, you have to wait until it's 5 o'clock before you can leave. And I was like, oh my God, I'm a hall walker.
I've never heard of that.
So I literally that next day had a conversation with him, and he had never talked to me about the business ever. And he said, I can't really give you leads. I can't really help you in that category, but I can guide you in how to get into this business. Come on down. We have a training program. I can help you get licensed. You can move back home until you get your own place. And this was what, March 1st? I think it was February or March of 1986. And I think I went in the very next day and gave my notice to my boss. His name was Reg. I'll never forget it. He told me I was making the biggest mistake of my life. I was dating a guy at the time. He told me I was making the biggest mistake of my life. And I moved
And
down.
then he made the biggest mistake of his life.
Thank you, Hank. Anyway, I just knew that this was not for me and I needed to make a change. And so I moved within 30 days, signed on with State Mutual and their FST program, got my licenses, and, got thrown to the wolves, as they say, back then. But very shortly, I mean, within 2 or 3 months, when I made my first sale, and as you know, back then, it was all insurance, life insurance, disability, health insurance. And I remember calling this gentleman up on the phone, getting all his information on disability because I had cold called. I had gotten a cold call lead. And I went in, met with him, sat down with him, asked him questions, talked to him about his family, talked to him about his business, made a sale. And I remember walking out of that sale saying, this is the greatest business in the world.
That's amazing.
And I think I was 3 months in. So
And you
I was
survived.
lucky. I was fortunate. I found something that fit who I was and what I wanted to do at that time.
But she's also very driven. And she has the discipline, which I think is why most people fail in this career, is they don't have the discipline to, because, tell them about, how many calls you would make and how you had rules that you couldn't end your day until you got a number of appointments. And in other words, all the things we've heard about in sales, but she did it.
Well, I
Yep.
had no leads because one of my older brothers was in the business. So anybody my father knew had given it to my older brother. And so I had to pay money to get some cold called leads back then. And that's what you did. I called it dialing for dollars. And my goal was if I had 15 appointments, I knew at least I'd close 1 or 2 of them. And if I could close 1 or 2 a week, no matter what it was or what the commission was, I knew I would survive. So I would just call. I didn't care if they hung up on me. They hung up on me. If by Thursday afternoon I had 15 appointments the following week, I took Friday off. And to me, I was like, wow, I get to control my destiny. I get to say when I work and don't work. It was awesome. It was great. I mean,
Liberating.
you can't come into the business that way today. We were lucky back then. That's how you came into the business.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know how people do it without being able to cold call anymore.
You can't. And nobody takes cold calls anymore. So,
No,
that's not an option.
that's true too. So you knew your numbers.
Oh, I knew my numbers. I knew for me, I knew my closing ratio. If I scheduled 15, I probably got in front of 8 to 10 because they cancel or they no show. And if
Mm-hmm.
I got in front of 8 to 10, I knew I could close 1 to 2. And so it
Fantastic.
worked.
And did you have a target, an annual target for number of lives?
No, for me, it was always about money. It was always about the amount of commissions. Back then, it was commission only.
Yep.
And I was very driven, and it was a matter of whatever that number was each year, I had to hit that number of how much in commission. And, back then, there was no reoccurring revenue. So come
That's correct.
January 1, you start all over again. But it was just really driven by the amount of dollars I wanted in my pocket.
Amazing. So what next?
So, as you know, back then, the business evolved from insurance, obviously, to investments, to getting our securities license. And I knew pretty early on that there was more to what we did than product, much more than what we did than product. And I was more interested in other things involved with whoever I was talking to, their family, their business, why they do what they do, what are they trying to achieve? And that's where I fell into the financial planning world and just knew that was really what I enjoyed. Obviously, selling the product is important back then, especially because you had to make commissions to survive.
Mhm.
But it was really about the financial planning side. And so got my CFP very early on. While I had 2 kids, I'd get up at 4 in the morning and study for my CFP and then get the kids up and, go to work, come back. But you did what you had to do. And I just knew financial planning was where the growth was going to be. And so I very quickly got into that side of the business.
Didn't you end up running the agency for a while?
So, yes, after I got my CFP, I'd been in the business probably, 86, 96, probably about 8 to 10 years, maybe a little bit longer. My father was the managing director at that time with All America. State Mutual became All America. And they had approached me and asked if I would ever have any interest. And I said, yes, I would, but it would have to be after my father retired. And my father and I were very close and got along very well, but I knew that we would not be able to be in management together. I just knew that. We had different ways of managing, different styles of managing. There was just no way that it would ever work. So when my father did finally make the decision to retire, I was given the role as managing director, which was a big deal back then. There were no other females that were managing director. I was the only one in the company. And it was, it was a big honor. It was a big undertaking. I had my practice with a partner back then who was a family friend. And he and I had an equal partnership in the practice. And we made an agreement that if I was going to take on this role as managing director, he would manage the practice. I would obviously get less revenue than he was getting because he was doing more of the work at the time. So I did. I was a managing director for about 3 or 4 years before I realized how much I disliked it.
And
highly disliked it.
How did you learn how to manage? I mean, you got thrown in. Was
No,
your dad kind of
they
a
sent me to the
mentor?
Wharton. No, they sent me to the Wharton School of Management, several
Oh,
different
cool.
Yeah, so there was a lot of training and a lot
Yeah.
involved in it. It was more than just saying you're going to be managing director. It was really a 3-year program to get into that role.
Amazing.
And it's interesting. People have asked me what I didn't like about it because it obviously paid a lot of money. It was managing the advisors. If I had 50 advisors, maybe 40 of them were really good. And when I say really good, doesn't mean that the other, I'm sorry, maybe if I had 50, maybe 10 to 15 were really good.
Really good.
And
Correct.
it doesn't mean that the others weren't good. They were in it for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
It was always about that sale. It was always about that product. It was
Mhm.
always about, the commissions. It wasn't about doing what was right for the client. And that was very frustrating. And no matter how much training I did or how much I tried to share what I thought was the right thing to do with them, you can't change that in a person.
It goes to the hiring process.
It sure
Right?
does. Yep. Yep. But I took over a
Right. It
region
was existing. You didn't have
and
a
I
choice
wasn't
on that.
involved in that hiring process.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So I didn't stay in it very long.
So then what?
In fact, I remember when I gave my resignation, and I won't name names, who was managing the the company at that time, told me once again I was making the biggest mistake of my life. And I said, well, it's my mistake to make. And I'm going to go back to having my practice and doing what I love and working with individuals and families and business owners. And that was all at about the same time as All America closing,
All
or
America,
Verivest
then
closing,
Verivest.
and
Yeah.
then Verivest. So it was kind of in conjunction that same 12 to 18 month period. In the meantime, I find out that my partner at that time had been telling clients that I was no longer in the business, had been telling clients that, they shouldn't work with me. And this was a childhood friend, one of my brother's best friends that we grew up with. So after I got out of management, after I tried to recover part of the practice, I basically started over, literally
Crazy.
started over. Had to go rent space, had to go find an office, and joined every mentoring group, every BNI group. I still have friends from that original group I joined in Weston, Florida, and had to rebuild my practice again.
And you were a single mom at the time, correct?
Single mom at the time. Yep.
Not much going on.
Not much going on. No. Mm-mm.
So you went and rented space, hung a shingle out, and this is really the kind of beginning of FSG, Financial Strategies Group. Is that correct?
Yeah, and that was probably like, when did we have to start? Was that 2000? What year was
2003.
2003?
I'll
Yep.
2003.
never forget. I don't remember much, but I remember those.
Yeah, it was
Remember
December
2003?
1, 2003. Signed a
Yeah.
lease, a 7-8 year lease, and said, okay, here we go.
Rock and roll.
Remember we had a prompt meeting. Everybody needs to meet in the conference room. We have an announcement to make. We've got 6 weeks to find a new broker dealer. Verivest is shutting down, and All America is getting out of the broker dealer business.
Mm-hmm.
Any questions?
Yep. But we did it.
Absolutely. So Hank, let's go back. So you met with you became partners with Al Searcy and Connie Weems Scott. So you got to.
Yeah, that evolved over time. So my CPA at the time knew Al Searcy. Part of my due diligence and trying to find what I thought would be a good firm led me to meet Al. And I think when I met Al at the time, he told me he was only going to work for another 3 to 5 more years. It turned into 15, but I won't go there. But no, I think early on I recognized maybe there was an opportunity here not only to work with somebody that had a lot of experience, but then the ultimate ability to maybe buy out their practice or do something down the road. And so I give a lot of credit to Al because Al was he was always willing to teach and always willing to work with me, but also very hands off. And so some of the, and back then, he had some clients that, we all have different levels of clients and stuff. And he had some folks that hadn't done a lot with him. And so he allowed me to start working more directly with those clients. And those clients are still my clients today. So some of that initial, and I was able to help him and do things as well. So it actually turned out to be a really good relationship. And in the beginning, it wasn't a formal partnership. Al also worked very closely with Connie Weems Scott, and again, they weren't in partnership, but they worked very close. So back then, a lot of that meant is you did seminars together and things of that nature, and you would share expenses and share leads and things of that nature. So it was really a great opportunity to kind of get started in the business, and one that I feel probably is where the evolution has come. I think that's almost the only way to get in this business now is to partner with another financial planning firm because let's face it, we're an advisory business now. The days of commission, and the example I always like to give is, first year in the business, let's say you're lucky enough to find $5 million of new assets. It's a pretty big number.
That's a big number for 1 year,
for
first
a newbie.
year.
Sure.
For a newbie, right? Brand new in the business. Well, back in the day, products you were selling paid anywhere from 5 to 7% commission. So that can turn out to be a really good year. Well, in the fee world, that's a $50,000 year, and you don't get 5 million day one January. So if you're lucky, maybe you scrape by and make 20 or 25,000. So I think in this new evolution, and I think it's obvious why more people are getting out of our business than getting into our business, it's because the model has changed. I think for the better, but that's just kind of the facts of it. So we formalized our partnership, and everything worked really well for a number of years. We made the transition when All America broke up. Um, Connie, Al, obviously with you, Kim as well, founding members of IFG, and I think there was a lot of, I guess, camaraderie. You say there's strength in numbers, but I think from my point of view, just having a group we've always had that group that we kind of could lean on or
Hmm.
ask for opinions and things of that nature. And also a very different environment. Everybody had a mutual, I think, care for one another, and it wasn't about the money. It was about helping. And that, I think, is a
Hmm.
culture that IFG has had, and one that we fight to preserve as we
That's right.
grow and make sure that people coming in understand that. I know in other industries or other types of companies, if I were to walk down the hall to that, senior advisor, the first thing out of their mouth is, "Well, I'll help you, but we'll have to split the case."
Hmm.
It was always about the money, and that just doesn't really happen in our organization. So over time, grew the practice. Really started out day one with a recurring revenue model, and so it took a little longer to build. But I always say, it's that first 5 years you've never worked so hard to get that base, and then from that point forward, obviously it becomes a lot easier. And then ultimately, I guess we started having our consortium. I think our first consortium retreat was in 2005, if I
That's
recall.
correct. Yep.
We had all been going, and I think we had it at the Westin Hotel in a small conference room. There wasn't a whole lot of us back then.
Not a lot of us.
And that was actually the first time I met Kim, because this woman walked in the room, and I looked over at Al Searcy, and I'm like, who is that? And that's Kim DeProspero. And I'd seen her name because she had been a managing director, and she had been in the firm for a while. And from there, really, it took actually till 2007 for Kim to finally work up the nerve to buy me a drink, and that's
I'm
that's
gonna
At,
that's
I'm
at our
how.
gonna
retreat.
I'm gonna ask Kim's viewpoint of this. What did you think of Hank for the first year or two? Because I've heard this.
Well, he was very aloof at all the meetings. He wouldn't really engage with other people, but he would always ask very intelligent questions. He would
Hmm.
always answer with intelligent responses. And I remember saying to Karen Lee, "Who's Hank Cleare? What's with this dude?" I mean, he seems very smart. He's obviously adorable, but he kind of is aloof. And that was my impression of who Hank Cleare was. And I knew nothing about him. And even Karen Lee didn't know anything about him, which is highly unusual because
Yes.
she typically knows about people. But so, yeah, that went on for '05, '06. I only would see him at the retreat, or I'd run into him at a wholesale meeting or a Pac Life meeting or a Sun Life meeting. Um, and then in 2007 at our retreat, we were in one of the rooms having a wholesaler presentation, and I was going up to the bar, and I said, "I'm going up to the bar. Would you like me to get you a drink?" So he says I was the first to
I
offer
love it.
him, but I did. That's a true story.
I love it.
She always likes to point out that the wholesaler sponsored it, so she technically didn't have to
I
buy
did
the drink,
not buy
but
you a
she
drink.
did get the drink.
I
But
did
I
get you the
always
drink.
say, never let the truth get in the way of a good story.
Yeah.
So then what? In your
So
relationship, I mean, this is such a great story. It's just,
no,
How much
I
you going
think
to tell, Hank?
Yeah, well, let's see. No. No, I think Kim and I started to see each other, and we of course were keeping it very hush hush, so nobody would know about it. Turns out I think everybody knew about it. But in the midst of this, that's when we formed a study group. And so the group that we still have today, one of our study groups that we have, started in 2007, and we brought some different candidates together. And that group remained in place for quite a number of years, and then we expanded it and added two more members to that group. So, um, it's Don. Don. I know you've made this comment, but I remember you hearing it many times. But partnerships are more difficult than marriages. And
Oh,
so,
I've never heard that before.
you never heard that? So you used to always say that. You used to always say that, and so what eventually evolved out of this was I broke away from CRC Weems Scott and Clear and took my practice and merged with Tim's practice. But the sequence of events was we dated, we got married. It was only after we were married that we started talking about merging our practices.
Which I
Um,
knew was going to happen.
and
Well,
I just knew it.
you were very concerned, rightly so, as our
I got on an
mentor.
airplane and flew down to Florida.
You did. I was very concerned because I had been through a horrible divorce, had given up a lot, and,
had a
you
bad
know,
business partner.
and that business
Hmm.
partner that I had to start all over. So I was very apprehensive to do it. But really, honestly, Hank, we sat down and we looked at our practices, we looked at our revenue, we looked at our type of clients, we looked at, everything. And it was eerily similar. Our practices were so similar, our numbers, our revenue, our households, all of it, that it really didn't make any sense for us not to merge our practice. So
Yeah,
we did.
it almost kind of evolved to why wouldn't we merge,
Why wouldn't
as
we?
opposed
Right.
to why should we? And I think that both of us financial planning focused, fee based focused, all those kind of things. And so I still remember when I called Al. I said, Al, I got to talk to you about something. I said, I've decided. Al's like, I've been waiting for this phone call, so he wasn't surprised. But but again, I think that I go back to the founding members of IFG and the culture. This wasn't scored as a win or a loss. This wasn't a situation where you hear about when partnerships break up. There's great anger and things of that nature. Um, they understood, they got it, it made sense. I had relocated down to Florida, still maintaining my office in Atlanta, and it just seemed really natural. And we had one staff member in Atlanta and one staff member in Florida, but I think that's really when we started to form the foundation of what financial strategies is today. And the as much as possible trying to do things the same way. If you ask our staff, they'll tell you Hank does it one way and Kim does it another. So they have, I think, more of a challenge. But we really did make an effort to try to create as much similarity as possible to one, make it easier on the staff that was having to deal with us.
So can
Eh,
I rewind just a touch?
Sure.
It's a compliment. Um, so yeah, I freaked out. You're newlyweds, and now you're going to do a business partnership. I think what a great way to destroy a marriage. And but you guys did everything absolutely correct. You had the operating agreement, buy sell. You had all that in place. You did it as business people. And I remember maybe a year or two later, I interviewed Kim to ask her why your partnership was such a success. And it
What'd
is
you
the key to
say?
partnership. And we have so many partners now that are spouses, and it's amazing to me. So, what are the keys to success? Being married, number one, and being business partners, number two.
I think there's probably two overreaching rules that we established very early. And of course, one is to make sure, it's clearly established who's actually in charge. And we
Hmm.
don't need to go into that on this call. Kim and I know who's in charge. But we had
Uh-huh.
two rules. We had two rules. And one was we never drove to work together.
That's interesting.
We took separate cars so we could maintain our separate identities. We weren't going to be driving all the time.
Well, come and
And
go as we please,
right.
make our own phone calls in the morning and the evening that we want to make. Because people would say to us, why don't you drive the office together? And we're like, yeah, no, no, no.
I
Need our
like that.
space.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing was we had a rule. I think one of the difficult parts about being in business together is there's really no off switch, right?
Hmm.
You're
Yep.
together 24/7. So, and there's a lot of days. It's interesting when we come into the office. We are on opposite sides of the room, of the building, of the floor. We might go all day and not see each other during the day. Occasionally, we might cross each
Hmm.
other's office on the way to the kitchen or something. But we had a rule that if either one of us didn't want to talk business, meaning the day's over, it's the evening, we want to unwind. All the person had to do is say, "Can we table that till tomorrow?" And we've both respected that rule. Um,
And we still
and
do. I
and we still
mean,
do.
literally,
Yeah,
as early as this morning over coffee, one of us said, "Hey, can I ask you a business question?" Meaning if I'm not up for it, he's not up for it, I'd say, you know what, let's talk about it later in the office, or
That's great.
can we table that? If because some days you just don't want to have another business conversation at
Hmm.
home in the morning or in the evening. So we've been really good about respecting that of each other.
That's great.
And the other reason why it works, Don, is Hank and I are very different.
Correct. If you were
And,
both
and,
the
and
same, it wouldn't work.
it wouldn't work. We're so different. Our skill sets are different. How
Hmm.
we approach things is different. I respect how he approaches things. He respects me. We might not always agree, but we'll come to a middle from those two different perspectives. And that really is key.
And you trust each other and you communicate.
Yeah.
definitely,
Trust and
definitely.
communication, very important, most important. And a lot of times we schedule time on our calendars for us to catch up because I'll have a list of things to talk to him about,
We
or he'll
plan
have a
meetings.
list of things. And we just put it on the red tail and have a meeting.
It's great. So, so you, Hank, you moved down to Florida. You guys get married, then you have officially become partners at FSG. So walk us through that and how FSG has evolved as a business.
Well, I think the biggest thing would be one, just integrating our practices together, split codes, all the things that kind of go into putting things together. We kept split codes separate in a sense that we could always identify my book of business versus her book of business, but yet it all rolled up together. Um, Even new clients that came in, we did the same thing. So I kind of call that there's the writing advisor. If we use Redtail as our CRM, so we can look at our book of business. The writing advisor is the person that brought the lead in. Now that we have more advisors, that's evolved because now we have also servicing advisors. So not necessarily who brought it in. But then we started to, that standardization. I think that's when we first got started with we hired a consultant to come in and help us for branding purposes. We did that very early on. And, that was probably the beginning of, how we're going to have a consolidated message. We did events in Florida, we did events in Atlanta, but we were always there. Um, Kim, you want to kind of supplement kind of
Well,
that
I think it was
process?
important very early on hiring of consultants, not only for branding, but for establishing the processes and how we did things so that it would be the same message to a client. It would be the same story. It would be the same experience. And we really, I would say 10 years ago, how long ago? I don't know, early on, but for the last 10, 15 years, that's what we've been working on. How do we build this practice that it's the same experience, the same message, regardless of where that client is or how that client comes to us? And we spent a lot of time and a lot of money building that, and it took
Right,
time and less money in our pocket, Hank, right, as we often
right,
say,
right.
but hiring more people and hiring more team members to support the growth that we knew would come and that we were working toward. But it was really just establishing that foundation and that message as a firm.
Well, and I've always had the philosophy that it's a lot easier to keep a client than to find a new one. And so the key was if you build a model that it kind of makes, clients are working with the firm, they're not working with an individual. That's how you make sure you're always there to service their needs, even if you're not available. And so that kind of evolved really then. I guess our first, we had additional administrative staff supporting us, but then, and I think it was over 12 years. Matter of fact, I'll have to look up the exact date, but that's when Nick joined our practice, and
Kim's son.
Hmm.
Kim's son. And what was interesting is Nick. We thought it'd be good for Nick because actually Chris did this. I think after his freshman year of college, he came and interned with us. So while he was still in college, he spent a summer and he interned with us, and it really I think gave him an aptitude of what we were doing, some kind of view of what we were doing. he ultimately became a business major and graduated with a business degree. Nick had gone a different route. He thought maybe he might be pre-law, political science. Um, and so part of it was something on your resume in the most simplest form, and or maybe you might learn this is something you're interested in. So he was supposed to come in and intern with us in the summer, and we got a call from him before the summer came around and said, "Hey, if I stay at Florida State over the summer, I can graduate, but I know we talked about the internship." And of course, Kim and I went, "Graduate, get it done, get it done." Um, but what happened then is he did. He graduated in August, and then he started working with us in September. But we sat down with him on that meeting and we said, I know we're calling this an internship, but we talked about whether it truly was going to be an internship or would we treat him in such a way that he might stay. And the decision was made to kind of treat him like he might stay. So it wasn't necessary, and that's kind of the mold that we put him in day one. And it was really to learn all aspects of our business, paraplanner. So this was not come in and get licensed. It was be an admin, because
Mm-hmm.
that's how you learn how to fill out paperwork.
Know how to open up an account, know
Yep.
how to move money, know how to, I mean, literally grunt, come in, and
Yep.
really was on a 6-month probational period, just to add to what Hank said, because not only did he have to see if this is what he wanted to do, we had to see if he was a good fit for the
Yeah.
firm. And so it really was a probationary period and, 3-4 years of back office grunt work. And he's, 12 years later,
Yeah, learning the
phenomenal.
financial planning process. I mean, he can manipulate the financial planning software probably is the best in the firm now, So again, building that foundation for him to be an advisor in the future, and it worked really well. So again, more time spent on practice management, a lot of time, procedures, processes. Our practices were growing. How do we make sure nobody falls through the cracks? How do we make sure there's a consistent follow-up system and making sure we're getting everything done with the client? So that was just a whole nother phase that occurred.
And then eventually Chris joins.
So Chris,
So now you got spouses, kids. You don't want to make this any more complicated, do you?
no. Well, and ironically, and you know this, Don, I never expected either one of my boys to come in the business ever. And so Nick comes in and it's such a success story and he's so good. Chris went the route of internal wholesaler. He worked with a mutual fund company in Boston, did very well. His next step was to become an external wholesaler. And he had an amazing external wholesaler he worked for out of Minneapolis, Minnesota, and looked at that and had the opportunity to do that, but called me up one day and said, I don't want that lifestyle. It's not the lifestyle I want to live. He saw how this gentleman lived his life for 3 years, made a lot of money, but
Yep.
didn't have much of a family lifestyle. So we kind of told him the same thing. Would love to have you come join the firm. It's going to be a probationary period. And at that time, it probably 40% reduction in compensation for him because I wasn't going to pay him what he was making at the mutual
Mm-hmm.
fund company. He had to come in and, he knew sales, but he didn't know financial planning. So he joined our firm, worked with Nick in the paraplanning department. And, that's one thing talking about Hank and I having different skill sets. Very fortunate that Chris and Nick have different skill sets. So as the future partners of this firm, they work well together because they have different attributes that they
Complementing
bring.
skill set.
Complementing skills, absolutely complementing skills. So Chris and Nick were pivotal, obviously, and then we hired a full-time paraplanner to support the firm, and that was probably the best hire we ever made. In that, Nick was thrown into it, developed the planning department, figure it out. He had to put it all together himself, to his credit. And then Chris kind of followed in those steps, but then we hired someone that actually came into a full-fledged planning department and really has been amazing. Matt, who
And it didn't
Yep.
happen successfully the first time. So
no,
I think that's one of the things that we had a vision of what it should look like, and we had experimented. Do you outsource your planning? Do you do it internal? I mean, we've wrestled with all
tried
these
both.
questions and tried both. And I think what we learned is, for us, the financial planning was such an integral part of what we do. It wasn't something to outsource. Meaning, it really is it's the foundation of every relationship we would have with our clients. So to outsource that to a third party that maybe doesn't even get in front of the client just didn't work. We also saw it as a great runway for somebody young who wants to get in this business, and I truly believe that's how you build a practice these days. And so, we didn't know this day one, but that's where we can make these statements now. And so we had somebody, they were with us for they might have made it a year and a couple of months, and finally it just wasn't working. We had to let them go. We then subsequently interviewed Matt, who Kim actually had met previously because one of her other study groups out of Connecticut, a gentleman out of Connecticut said, "Hey, I know this young man's father. He's down in Miami. He's working for Northwestern Mutual. Would you mind just meeting with him just to have a contact?" And that's how we initially made the conversation. Tim had met him, was impressed with him.
I was so impressed. I walked into Hank's office and I said, I know we're not hiring and we don't have a spot for him, but you got to meet this kid. You got to meet this kid. And so
Well, I
5
liked him
years?
immediately.
Yeah.
Immediately. He and I are the only two people who have mustaches.
Only two.
Only two.
There's not many out there.
Yeah, that's right. Well, and just how sometimes I always say sometimes you're good and sometimes you're lucky. We were lucky because at the time we needed to refill that paraplanner position. We knew of somebody that could possibly be a good fit, and he was available. I think he had spent a year and a half with Northwestern Mutual and totally a life insurance sales position with hopes of other things. And so I think he really welcomed the change. And again, that was a process. Learning our business, there's a very steep mountain to climb.
Mm-hmm.
And not everybody has the patience for it, right? Because they want to make money. They want to make money fast. And so both with Nick and Chris and Matt, it's been, be patient. It will pay off. But it's not fun the first 3, 4, 5 years because your colleagues and the friends that are out there in sales jobs with these pharmaceutical companies or IT companies, and they're making a lot of money, but have patience. And it has paid off.
So right now, you've got 4 advisors. You two, Chris and
Nick and Chris.
Correct.
And this year, Matt will become an advisor.
Matt's going to become
probably
an advisor.
June 1st.
And then what's the rest of the staffing look like?
So we have 2 full-time operations people and 1 part-time. We've used ASAP, which has been hugely successful using the program through IFG. And ironically, they're all virtual right now. That wasn't planned that way. Partially it was, partially it wasn't. One of our girls that was here for years moved to Atlanta. And, post-COVID, we're able to manage it. So all of our operations individuals currently are virtual, not in the office here. Yeah. And it works. So we've got 2 full-time, 1 part-time, and then Matt and the 4 advisors right now.
Are Chris and Nick on a track to buy in as partners?
Hank, I'll let you answer that.
Yes.
They are. We're in the process of it right now. We had a consultant last year. We used LPL's consultant. We've got our operating agreements done. We have our employment agreements done. They are now in the process of finalizing outside financing, and we're hoping no later than May or June 1st, they will buy in, each of them, to the practice.
Exciting.
Very exciting.
That's fantastic.
And that process has been an evolution because, first we taught them and work with them to develop their skills as advisors and financial planners and all the things that you have to do in this business. And then gradually we've been delegating to them how to run a business. And I think that's a part that a lot of people, you might be good at one thing, your technical skills, but it's how do you run a business? And so they manage the payroll. They have oversight over the 401k, over the company benefits. In essence, everything from, we need a new copy machine. Well, okay, let's go out and get quotes. And do we lease? Do we buy? I mean, so we've put them in the position where they've had to learn that, albeit we're here. but and maybe sitting at the table, but always trying to take that number two position and let them lead. And so the idea now is once they do finally make that transition as partners, they know how to do everything. And that to some degree is part of our succession plan. It's part of our
Hmm.
contingency plan. I mean, all those things are things that we've been working on for really over 10 years. And so, I think we're really starting to reap the benefits, and we've got a foundation. One of the things that Kim and I talk about, we have not grown our practice at really the level we could have grown because we've tried to be really intentional on that growth and how we get there. But we feel like now we've got the right players in place, the right staff, the right processes that we can really start to scale our business now going forward without
And
necessarily increasing a lot of overhead.
yeah, and you have the capacity.
Right.
So, so you guys are in Italy several months out of the year.
Hmm.
Um, how does that work? So are Chris and Nick pretty much running things while you're gone? Is that how?
They are. They are. We've gotten now to
Okay.
where, because we've got the right team and the right processes, we don't miss a beat, honestly. The first time we went there for 6 weeks, we thought, how is this going to work? Not a problem at all. And we do all of our client engagement, progress meetings while we're here in the States. And when we're there in Italy, obviously we're in communication with the office and in communication with clients, but it's really just touching base, touching with the client, no progress meetings, nothing that they can't handle back here at the office, which is great. And
Yeah,
they
and,
love
and
when we're not here.
yeah, we don't give them things as much to do.
We're
Well, and
not giving them
also,
projects.
yeah, we're not interrupting them all day long with like 10 new things. What Also too, Kim and I, it allows us to have some very focused time on what I would call practice management, continuing education, all the things. So I think what we've started to do is really concentrate, and that's what I think has made it really pretty smooth. I mean, we really haven't had any issues. And, aside from maybe a 6-hour time difference, it's no different that Nick is in Atlanta and I'm here or we're in the Keys. I mean, it just it doesn't matter. This virtual world we live in makes it easy to communicate. So
I
that's
mean,
been a big plus.
COVID created all this.
It
COVID
It
has
sure
did.
been
did.
just a game changer.
If there was only one, I'm always hesitant to say it this way, but if there was one good thing that came out of that experience, it was, I think, this acceleration of technology and people's comfort with technology and, just simply using a Zoom call or something like that. And I think that's made a big difference. I mean, even, I would come to Atlanta once a month and have meetings in Atlanta, and I think it was after that big snowstorm that you had that pretty much
Oh,
paralyzed the city. Um, I still remember coming up there one time in February, and there was the potential that this was going to happen again. And of course, I've never experienced anything like it. Atlanta became a ghost town, and I know some people had some pretty harrowing experiences when the real one did hit.
hmm.
But there's a lot of times when we call clients and try to schedule an appointment, they're like, "We can just do Zoom."
Yeah.
Um, and also I think the being fearful that you couldn't form new relationships unless you were sitting across the table with somebody. I would say majority of the clients we've added since that time frame are virtual clients, not people that are local that walk in our office. So I think that's been a positive dynamic, I guess, with technology and continuing to be able to scale your business.
So where do most of your new clients come from? Is it
They
referrals, marketing?
No, I would say most all come from our existing clients, centers of influence, and our strategic partners, which I know, Don, you've heard me talk about them in the
Hmm.
past, but we formed this group over 10 years ago. Um, and just like everybody, you have an estate planning attorney you refer people to, you have a CPA, you have a payroll person, you have a senior care specialist. We approached it a little differently over 10 years ago because all of these individuals own their own practice or own their own business. So instead of approaching it like a BNI, you come to the meeting and you bring referrals, right? And you leave with referrals. We approached it in the beginning, very beginning, that we're business owners helping each other be successful as business owners. So literally each month when we would meet in the beginning, it was, how are you doing with staffing? How are you doing with hiring? What are you using for IT services? What are you using internally for payroll? And it was all about how to be a better business owner versus, are you bringing me referrals to this monthly meeting? And what happened over time is the relationships that grew every single month meeting with this group for the last 10 years, they refer to us and we refer to them. It's only natural, but it wasn't
Yeah.
expected at that monthly meeting. It just
Yeah.
came from us liking each other, working with each other, helping each other as business owners. So all of our clients either come from referrals from our existing clients or from our strategic partners, which is our centers of influence.
Yeah, and I think that's the difference. We didn't call them center of influence, we call them strategic partners. And when we would go out and talk to people that we thought might be a good fit, we had a couple criteria. And so the first idea was we wanted to have a strategic partner that we could call on to better assist our clients. So that might be a property casualty agent that we could send over during the financial planning process and have them look over their homeowners or car insurance or umbrella policy and give us feedback on what they see. So that was a great example. Or a legal question or a tax question where we could pick up the phone and, of course, they're going to answer right away and help us. They're not going to charge us for that. They're not going to charge our clients for that. They're a resource. And then what naturally evolved is, maybe the information we learned to better enhance their situation could result in maybe talk to our property and casualty agent because they can get you better coverage and better value. So that's really what happened. And then we get together once a month. So again, it's not this onerous thing that you have to be there like a traditional BNI group or something. Not to say that's bad. It works for a lot of people, but it wasn't where we wanted to be at our point in our careers. And it's really served us well. And we've had people retire, so we've had to replace and backfill some of those people. But our group is pretty big. So we even have a neuropsychologist as a
Oh my
partner.
gosh.
And
So
when
you say pretty big, what is that? 10, 20?
No, we're probably about 10 in total.
10, yeah.
Yeah. But not what you would consider your traditional. Remember, everybody, you have a CPA, you have a estate planning attorney. We've got a mortgage person. We've got a senior care manager, very big in our business. And I can't tell you how many clients have come to us because they're dealing with their aging parents and they're like, we don't know what to do. Well, we've got somebody that can help them, and they've helped so many of our clients. I mean, early on, one of our relationships is so strong today because of that introduction to help him with his mother. Had nothing to do with what we were doing for him on a day-to-day basis. I mean, obviously, we're doing a good job for him, but what really sealed our relationship was the fact that FSG is a resource that can help me in all aspects of our life. You hear it's common that seniors, there's a high percentage of depression that can happen to people after they retire. Having that neuropsychologist where you can get them in and get them reviewed to find out, is it depression? Is it something that's and those are the things that have come out of this that we've been really proud of, to have those people that we can call on when we need them.
Yeah, that's so unique. It's powerful. So you have a introduction or referral from wherever it came from. How do you make that first contact? Because they'll say, "Oh," client will say, "I know Jim. I'm going to give him your phone number." And of course, it stops there. So how
Yeah.
do you handle that?
That's a great question. It's a process. Chris is our business development person. So any referral, regardless of where they come from, go through Chris. And what that means is Chris sets up an introductory phone call with that individual and has a 30-minute conversation about what we do, how we do it, what that looks like, what that feels like, and then try to get a feel for what they're looking for and if there's a match. And then if there's a match, he then will quote our planning fee and what is involved in that planning fee and what you get for that planning fee. And then, an agreement is made or not made, or a follow-up meeting is made from that point. And the follow-up meeting will be made, whether it be with Hank, whether it be with me, whether it be with Nick, depending on where the relationship started or where the referral came from. But it flows through Chris, business development, and goes through that planning, the initial planning process. And then from there, the first meeting is the discovery meeting. Finding out about the client, what it is the client is looking for. So it's a process from Chris, to then a discovery meeting, and then obviously then the paraplanning, financial planning department's doing the work, and then plan presentation.
So
What
on
I
your
was going to
discovery meeting, do you make the clients fill out a form or just have them bring their stuff in?
No. They have to, in fact, we don't have a discovery meeting unless they fill it out. Unless they
Oh, is that
fill that
right?
out and send all their documents. And not all of them. I mean, there'll be some that we don't
Yeah.
need. But yeah, I mean, they've agreed and they've paid a fee up front. And
And
so what we learned over the
what do you
years,
charge?
3,500 to 4,500.
Okay.
And what we've learned over the years is that when we didn't charge the fee, they didn't do it. We have no problem with them
Mhm.
doing it when they pay the fee. Zero.
Yeah.
They do it.
Well, and I will
They get-
say that one of the things that I do think has had a significant impact on our business is we always talked about Chris. 50% of his role when he first started with us was going to be business development, and 50% was going to be a servicing advisor.
Mhm.
So, that was kind of his role. Nick is really 100% servicing advisor. And we made a conscious decision that every single referral would go through Chris and he would manage that. Because I think you mentioned, when you're in meetings all day and you're meeting with clients and you're busy, you get a referral. When are you going to make that phone call to
Right.
contact that person? And we're all guilty of this, that sometimes a couple of days could go by and, that's, you always say it's the golden ticket. You've got someone who's interested, you should jump on that right away. And sometimes it's just not feasible. And so that changed the way we talk to people. So if I met you for the first time and you had expressed interest in that conversation with you, I'd say, well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to have Chris Rios give you a call and help us arrange a time to get together. And he would have it, I would send him the email and within an hour it'd be done. And so that kind of responsiveness I starts even to establish for the client, hey, these people are serious. Like
Yeah.
they've got a process. They've got a way of doing things. And it's really worked great. I mean, and so for Chris, sometimes, in the beginning we were involved in everything. But now sometimes maybe Chris just does that initial meeting. Maybe Chris and Nick do that meeting. Chris uses his judgment to decide, would it be better to pull Tim in on this meeting or Hank in on this meeting? That kind of initial meeting, if you will. And then we'll have the discovery meeting. I will tell you a lot of times the discovery meeting becomes then Nick, Chris, and Matt. And maybe we're not even involved in the discovery part, but we are involved in the plan presentation. So it's really worked well, and I think it's allowed us to deliver a consistent product, if you will.
I like that. And yeah, you're right. I mean, your whole point, they immediately understand that you got your act together. You've got processes.
We also established that you're working with a team. You're not working with one person.
Yeah,
And
that's
so
huge.
usually by the time a client, let's say they go through the financial planning, that's the first piece. At that point, they could walk away. And our financial planning service is structured that way. We've given them the information they were looking for. If they decide, hey, can you help me now manage this? That's really phase 2. But by the time we get to phase 2, they've probably talked with and met with every single member of our team, whether that's just
Mhm.
Jocelyn calling to confirm an appointment or follow up on something, to the discovery meeting that might have involved one of the advisors or all of us.
So you have the initial kind of mutual selection phone call. You have the discovery meeting. You have the plan presentation. And then it's up to them whether or not they want you to manage the assets.
Correct.
And so is this the only time you charge a fee? If they want you to manage the assets, does it all get kind of swept in under the AUM?
Yeah, we do the initial planning, we charge the fee for. If
Hmm.
they become a client, the ongoing updates of financial plans is part of the advisory fee. We don't continue to charge an additional
Yeah.
fee for the planning.
Yeah. So,
One thing we don't do that I know some advisors do is they'll do that whole thing like, well, this is the fee, but if you implement with us, we're not going to, we'll like give you the fee back or something like that.
right.
We make a very distinct, the service we give on financial planning is very comprehensive. And so, we don't believe in giving that away. And I remember in the old days, the financial planning was almost the hook, we'll give you a free financial plan.
Well, well, interestingly, the person that made us keep increasing our financial planning fee was Chris and Nick, because being back office, they
I
saw the
knew how
amount of
much work
work,
it was.
the
Yeah.
amount of time, and they were like, "You're not charging enough, or you're giving it away, and we're not a charity." And so they really were instrumental in us realizing that, because the old days, that's what we did. We said, "We'll do the planning. We want your assets." And to your point about them getting us the information, we never have a problem with them getting us the information
Yeah.
because they pay the fee up front.
So that's
And
always been I've seen so many planners undercharge, and I go to the fact that they call them landscapers. They mow your lawn, trim your
Hmm.
bushes. It's at least 2,000, 2,500 a year just to mow the lawn.
Yep.
And bringing all this knowledge and experience and intellectual. And so somebody charges $1,500 for a plan. It's like, really?
right.
Right.
Well, and the consistent follow up. So, Nick or Chris has business development. Not only does he have that initial outbound call to get that first meeting scheduled, but he will manage the process until the fee agreement is signed and the fee is paid. At that point, he has to decide then, does he hand that off to Nick and Matt in the financial planning department, or is he going to be the advisor on that relationship? So what we've tried to do is we always want Chris to have one or two plans in the pipeline. And
Okay.
so if he already has two in the pipeline, then he knows he's going to hand this relationship off to Nick and work either with him and I. And so he's kind of built his own book as well through that process of where he's the servicing advisor not only, but he's brought them in and taken them through the whole process. And so that it's worked really well in that regard.
So with the existing clients, what does the cadence look like on an annual basis? Meetings,
As far
communication.
as how much or how many times we're touching them.
How many touching them? Meetings. What does that
Yeah, I
look
mean, it
like?
depends on the client. Obviously, our as we say, A and A plus clients are getting quarterly touches, one annual full review, update review, bucket update, reviewing the estate docs, reviewing beneficiaries. I mean, a full financial plan review every year at least once. Our better or A and A plus clients is a quarterly touch. And also from a marketing standpoint, we have a personal newsletter that we mail out every quarter. We have monthly blogs that we do, birthday gifts, anniversary gifts. So they're getting touched, in
Hmm.
my opinion, quite a bit.
And the progress meetings are somewhat tailored to the client and their particular needs. So of course, always we're meeting with them once a year, but some people are set on to meet with twice a year. Some we meet with quarterly. So we kind of establish what the need is, and also for the client what they want. A lot of times, after you've worked with somebody and they're obviously confident you're doing a good job, they're like, we really don't need to
Right.
meet. Is there something you need to tell me about? And I'm like, no, everything's fine. But, want to stay in touch with. They're like, oh, we're okay. We already had our meeting for the year, and that's fine. Call me if something changes. And then we're also doing a lot of other things. So we try to break up and do some tax reviews and meeting maybe with their tax advisors the second half of the year. So some of the meetings or maybe looking at Roth IRA conversions and things of that nature. Some of this gets set up in the first half of the year, and then the follow-up is in the latter half of the year. So that's where a lot of this kind of evolves throughout the year and evolves the type of contact we have with them.
Okay. So what kind of technology are you using for all this, everything you're doing?
You want to cover
Planning
that, Kim?
software.
No, but I mean, we're using a lot of technology. Don't we all
I
complain
know.
about that? We're adding on another one. We're adding on
I
another
know.
one. We've refused to switch from Redtail just because it works and we have no reason to.
Hmm.
And the software really that we live and die from is what, Hank?
Well, we
It's
did
your
make a
project
big change
management.
last year.
Yeah, the project manager.
Airtable
2 years
is
ago now.
something that we have found to be very scalable and used for very different things. And so one of the most recent things that we've implemented is for each advisor to track your servicing advisor clients and whether or not they have a trusted contact in place, whether they have their power of attorney in place, and when was it last verified. And so, we've been making a real push for that because of some issues that have come up over time to really make sure we've done that, because a lot of the new documentation has that, but a lot of the older clients don't. And so that's just a great example now, where we can go in and take a look at that. We have a tracking sheet for tracking of fixed annuities and when they mature, and really staying on top of that kind of stuff. We have a tracking sheet for our progress mate. So Airtable has really become a big part of what we do, and what's nice is we can customize it. So everything that we're tracking has its own customization, and everybody's using it. We used to be on Wealth Vision, which of course is LPL's brand of e-money. We made the decision last year to move completely to e-money, and we had to do that manually because LPL was not willing to just release the data.
Wow.
And that was a big project that actually Matt led
That
and did a
was that was
phenomenal
Matt's
job.
project.
The benefit was he got to know every one of the clients. So again, enhancing that whole team concept that we have.
Hmm.
What was really surprising is that there's a lot of functionality that eMoney has that we weren't getting through WealthStation.
I didn't know that.
A
Mm,
Uh-huh.
lot, a
a
lot.
lot.
And
Uh,
so even like, Roth IRA conversion, some of the different things. And so I think for some reason, maybe when eMoney, as they're developing new things, they launch it. But I suspect it has to go through some kind of approval process or something before maybe it rolls out to WealthVision. So that's been huge. So making that change.
We also
Tim
use
mentioned
Halista Plan with all of
hmm.
our clients. Um, we're now
nitrogen.
nitrogen. We still use I call it income for life, even though I know that's not what it's called anymore. But
Wealth
that's a
PK or income
Buckets.
conductor. It's income conductor. That's the one
large,
we use.
large part of our planning process. In fact, our clients come in and say, just show me the buckets. I want to see the buckets. I mean, we've
Hmm.
been doing that for over 20, 25 years. Um, and it works in the income distribution strategies that we implement with our clients.
So
We've
let me just
added,
clarify. You're using an income conductor for that.
yes,
Okay.
yes. So
Correct.
we have the income conductor, and then we have a one-page spreadsheet that we use, which is not allowed to give to the client, and we don't,
Hmm.
but we're able to show it to them so they understand, what bucket 1, 2, 3, 4 looks like. And that's makes it just so easy for the client to understand the different buckets of money and where money or income is going to come from. We just recently added the box. Is that what it's called,
Hmm.
Hank?
Yeah,
Box.
for
Yep.
secure uploading.
Proud of me?
Hmm.
No, that's great, and I will tell you that anybody that's not using this should consider it, because for LPL has a negotiated price. I think it's like $35. Everybody can have a secure link in their email. So that means everybody in the firm can say, look below my signature, click on the secure upload, and you can upload the documents there. So no more of this. I'll send you a secure email, and then you upload
Right.
your files, and hopefully they're not over 25 megabytes and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
So Jen, the little incremental things that sometimes cause friction and slow
Hmm.
things down. So we've got that going now. That was our theme, by the way. Is every year when we do our business planning, we come up with a theme, and our theme this year is efficiency. And everybody in the office laughs at me, but I've got an ongoing Excel spreadsheet that I think has over 30 different items now that we're either working on, want to work on, or have already completed. And
Wow.
sometimes it's as small as the person scheduling the meeting has the ability to immediately create the Zoom link and put everything into Redtail so that everybody now can go on to the next step. Sometimes that requires maybe you got to have an extra subscription or something.
Mm-hmm.
But versus, you schedule the meeting and then you send an email to Jocelyn or to the advisor saying, can you schedule the Zoom link? Well, that's just crazy. So those are the kind of things that we're really working on this year. And to do that, we had to have a meeting with the team. And, things like, well, it takes me forever to get statements from different annuity companies. And, can we add them as a user so they can have access to it? Because now with two-factor authentication,
Right.
they can't get to it. So we've really worked hard on trying to do as many of those as we can.
That's great. Any other technology? Using my rep chat,
Oh,
We
yeah,
use my rep chat
absolutely.
and
Use
Slack.
Rep Chat and Slack
Slack.
every
Highly.
day.
Slack.
Right.
Yep.
Do you use the scheduling tool?
No.
No, we found that
Jump.
hard to integrate.
It was
How about
very
Jump?
hard with
Yeah.
so many advisors.
Yeah.
Honestly, if it was just me, that's easy. But we got two different people scheduling for four advisors, and
Yeah.
sometimes the
Didn't work.
advisors are in meetings together, so it didn't work.
Yeah.
Right. We use Jump AI. I am using it. No one else really in the firm is. I found it to be highly effective. I was actually one of when we had that temporary use of, I think, was it ZocDoc or something
Yeah,
like that.
Zoc. Yep.
I used it then and I really liked it. I've been happy with the Jump AI. I don't think we've fully explored its capacity, but it works. It's working, and so we're learning as we go.
Amazing. So you don't have to get detail, but high level, how is the comp structure worked out? Is it a salary bonus with all the advisors? What does that look like?
Salary
Yeah,
bonus.
we've always focused on fixed comp with bonus incentive comp, always.
Okay.
And it remains that. And it's just different each year depending on what the incentive comp is based on and depending on the individual.
Fantastic.
And one of the things I will say for, maybe other practices might find this interesting is, we used to spend a lot more time where maybe you have a lower base and a higher amount that would be paid out in like a quarterly bonus. And
Mm-hmm.
then you'd tie that quarterly bonus to meeting certain expectations or achieving certain goals. What we learned basically is if people aren't doing their job, they're not going to be here. So
Mm-hmm.
we start on the assumption that everybody's going to do their job and everybody's going to meet their goals. So what we found is it was actually more helpful to our staff, to our employees, to basically pay them a higher salary and have less of it focused on the bonus. Just because things are expensive, especially down here in South Florida.
Yeah.
And so if at the end of the year the comp was going to be quote unquote the same, then just pay them a higher monthly
Fixed
salary.
comp.
Mm-hmm.
Fixed comp. And we found that worked well. We also try to do, occasionally we will have like a big project like, that whole integration from Wealth Vision to eMoney. We tied a big bonus to that and basically said, this is kind of our expectations for you to get it done. But as soon as you get it done, you get the bonus. So, it's kind of like you're in the driver's seat.
Mm-hmm.
And then sometimes we will give just
Random
bonuses for certain situations. We gave a bonus one year because I can't remember which staff member, but one of our accounting firms got hacked.
Ooh.
And people got access to all their client information. And so we started having phone calls to our office impersonating our clients, trying to get access to their account. Somebody bypassed us and went straight to LPL, had all the information, right? Date of birth, social security number, all that kind of stuff, got LPL to place a trade. Through notifications, one of our staff people saw that there was a trade in somebody's account and knew that they weren't the ones to put it in and followed up on it. And it actually was somebody mimicking one of our clients that talked directly to LPL. we caught it before anything else happened, and we actually got it fixed in a day.
That's
We gave a
amazing.
bonus for that. Just
Absolutely.
trying to do those kind of things that,
Yeah.
you're not just coming here and doing a job. And we were taking care of people. We're taking care of families.
Yep.
And so that extra effort, that extra phone call to let them know what's going on, whether you have an answer or not, just to let them know you're still working on it.
That's great. That's huge. Well, I'm going to kind of start wrapping up with some fun questions. And Kim, I'll start with you and use 3 words that describe your talents and strengths.
Hank and I last night when we were home, we
We couldn't
switched.
think of any.
What?
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, we couldn't think of any.
Well, it's better. It's more objective that way, right?
Right?
Yeah. So I'll start with Kim. Some words for Kim.
Okay.
So one, and it's kind of a broader term, but Kim, empathetic, and I think empathetic then rolls into being engaging and caring. I kind of look at it as all one thing. I think she's great at connecting with people. She's great at asking questions and genuinely showing a real interest in people. I think that's one of her great skills. She's also a great listener. She is our office therapist. That psychology degree that she got at Auburn
Paid off.
paid off. The joke is she probably should just have a lounge couch in her office, and people would come in and just lay down and talk to her about what's going on in their lives. Not only she does that for her clients, but she does it for lots of her friends, and half the time total strangers that feel comfortable talking with her. We always joke when we used to go on family trips with the boys, and we'd go and stop at the gas station. Kim would run in the store and pick up something for us to eat or drink, and then she'd come out, and the first thing one of us would ask is, "So, who'd you meet?" She goes, "Oh, I met Sarah. She works behind the cashier. She's going through a really rough divorce right now, but she's got 2 amazing kids." And I mean, so this became the ongoing joke. But the fact is it was true. Versus, I would have probably walked in and smiled, paid, and said thank you and walked out. So the difference. I would have been nice and polite. Also, I think the next word would probably just be positivity. Kim's got a very positive outlook, even in crisis. I mean,
I've seen
I
it.
think people can be half full or half empty, and she's definitely on the half full side. So I think those are some of her talents that one makes her the person she is, but also very successful in her role as a financial planner.
I agree. And I've always said that, in my opinion, the best degree in college for this profession is psychology. It's a people business.
It is. And it's 80% of what we do, right?
Mm-hmm.
As I often tell individuals, obviously the investment management side is so important because it's your money, it's your life savings, it's your bucket. But getting us there and how we do it and with whom you do it that's psychology, that's relationships, that's trust, that's listening, that's having empathy, all of that, and often our experiences in our life, or I should say most often the experiences we've been through, whether it be divorce, death, illness, all those things, help us be better financial planners,
That's
right?
correct.
Because we understand.
I agree.
And that's what I love about Hank and I working together because his qualities are all the things I'm not, which, he's so damn intelligent and smart. I'm not saying I'm not smart, but he's so smart and he's so analytical that he loves to dive in, and as a business owner, that's a big important part of what we do. And
Mm-hmm.
so when we talk about working on our business, I am so grateful that Hank has the mindset and the talents he has because he loves diving deep and getting analytical and looking at the why, and how do we fix it and how do we solve it and how do we come up with another solution. Whereas my brain is like, just solve it, right? I want to talk to people. I don't want to solve the problem. And he's a problem solver. And he's a problem solver a lot of times, when it comes to situations with my sons. They are still my boys. They are still my babies. Even though they are soon to be partners and we work together in
Uh-huh.
business all these years, he is the intermediary. He's the problem solver, which is amazing.
That's
And
great.
that's why we work well together.
I love it. I agree with both of your observations of each other. Absolutely.
Pretty right
So,
on.
Hank, tell us something that surprising that maybe other people don't know about you.
Shall
So
I tell them?
again, we're going to flip this because I looked at Kim and I go,
He
there's
couldn't
nothing
think of
surprising.
one thing, and I thought of two.
Okay, let's hear one.
Okay. First, when he and I met, he was never a cook. I mean, he was a frozen dinner kind of guy, pick up at the restaurant, never cooked. It's true. COVID hit, and he developed a desire to cook. Well, I've always loved to cook, but he
Yeah,
has
you're
taken
great.
it to a new level. Like literally gourmet cook, 8 course meal, nine
Oh my
course
God,
meal, sit down with a menu, have every meal plated in a specific way. And he's had these types of dinners and celebrations for friends and family members. Amazing, amazing
I
cook. He
love
just
it.
had a guys' weekend in the Keys, some college and high school friends. And they walked away. He cooked every meal, 3 meals a day. They're like, oh my gosh, where'd you learn this? How come you didn't do this in college? So,
That's
anyway, he's an
amazing.
amazing chef. And secondly, a lot of people don't know that he is a performer. He can
Oh, we
sing,
know.
and well, and once a
Well,
year with
anybody
10,
at some of the retreats know.
he goes to Key West once a year with 10 of his buddies, and they dress in full garb Elvis outfits and go from bar to bar performing.
I love it.
And he's the lead singer, of course.
Of course.
Of course.
All right, Kim. How about you?
Yeah,
So so so
I
so when
as
I well, and let me touch on this. So we were talking about Kim and Kim. One of the things we concluded is, are there any surprises? Because Kim's an open book, and she, part of her personality is, she's not afraid to share. But I'd be curious what other surprises she 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 has under her sleeve.
yeah,
Obviously Hooters. I didn't know she worked at Hooters,
Oh,
so
I
so
said
that's
that.
that was
woo.
a
All right.
Never
surprise.
worked at Hooters.
Yep. Yep.
I mean, probably one of the things people don't know is I come from a very musical family. I mean, my grandmother was an opera singer. My father was an opera singer.
Oh
He
my
was in New
gosh.
York to be an opera singer on Broadway when he met my mom and then had to find a job. And that's how he got in the insurance business. Um, I played 4 instruments growing up because that was mandated. My grandfather was a conductor of an orchestra. And so I keep telling my children that one of the grandkids is going to get that gene because none of us kids got it. I mean, I played 4 instruments, but I certainly was not, the musician.
Yeah.
And my kids didn't get it, and none of my nephews got it. So let's hope it skips
Skip a generation.
generations. Yeah,
Yeah, I
let's
had no
hope.
idea. That was a surprise to me. All right, last question. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
For me, it probably goes to my positive attitude. Both my parents were of the mindset and would say to us, you have a choice every day. You have a choice every day to decide how you face the day. And you can either be happy or not be happy, but it's your choice. And my kids even
Is
make
that
fun of
where it
me to
came
this
from?
day.
I hear that a lot, Don.
Yeah, you have a choice.
Perfect. I agree. How about you, Hank?
When I was thinking about this, I don't think it was somebody that gave me a specific piece of advice, but some of this was gleaned, I think, from watching other people and witnessing maybe certain situations. Um, but one of the reasons I do what I do is I'm a big believer in maintaining some type of financial independence. I think that if people um, focused on building wealth even outside of maybe the job they have. I had a godfather who was into real estate and even had storage facilities as creating that reoccurring revenue and was a business owner. And then I witnessed a situation with my own family where my father, late in his career, kind of at his peak earning years, you know, management changes, new people come in, people get pushed out, and just being in a position where you really don't control your destiny, or you hear about people all the time that um, they're in a job that they hate, but they just don't have a choice because they've made decisions to take on too much debt and do things like that. So, the big part I think is how do you reach some level of financial independence, and I think you can do that early in life. You don't have to wait till you're 60 years old. independence might look a little different, but I think it's just giving yourself flexibility and giving yourself options, and not backing yourself into a corner that takes those options away. So
I
those are
like
probably
that.
the big things.
So I want to thank both of you for taking this time and effort and sharing. And you've been doing it for since really the beginning of IFG. I mean, Kim, you were on the advisory board for 20 years, I think,
Mm, long time.
and that's
Yep.
a big deal. Hank, you were on it. You both do so much. You were one of the first one. Yeah, that's right. Uh, both dedicated so much to the consortium, and it's been fabulous.
It's
Anyway, I can't
awesome.
thank you enough for this. This has been fun, and I
Our
love
pleasure.
learning about Hooters. I had no idea.
Oh my gosh. Are you going to erase that?
No. Oh, believe me, the whole consortium is going to know.
Oh my gosh, that's great. Houston's.
All right. See you
Thanks,
guys.
John. It was fun.
Bye. Well, that's it for today's show. Thanks for listening. If you've got something to share, send an email to dpatrick@thebraintrust.net. We want to know what works. Until next time, see ya.
Securities offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA, SIPC. Advisory services may be offered through LPL Financial, a registered investment advisor, or IFG Advisory LLC, a registered investment advisor. Integrated Financial Group and IFG Advisory LLC are separate entities from LPL Financial. The opinions voiced in this podcast are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which strategies or investments may be suitable for you, consult the appropriate qualified professional prior to making a decision.